All right, so let's take a look at this piece of music right here. This is a few measures from a Mozart violin sonata. The piano part here lays out chords pretty clearly. We can, I think, mostly focus on the piano part, although I'll want to look to the violin part just in case there's a question if something has a seventh on it or something. Okay, just to clarify if something is potentially ambiguous. Why don't I zoom in again and get this focused? All right, so we can look here and see, pretty strong bass line here presented in octaves. Chords are changing at approximately the same rate as the notes in the bass. So I think it's pretty easy to segment this into chords. So we're going to look at the first chord right here. Okay, and if you haven't done this, please pause the video, do the analysis, either do the whole thing and watch the video or do it chord by chord, pausing each time to do it, and then compare what you did with my walkthrough. All right, so we're in the key of E flat. I see here an E flat major chord. I'll just sketch this right here. It's an E flat major chord. That is 1 in the key of E flat. Very easy. All right, let's look now here. So here's a question. It says it's an E flat, but this key signature has 4 flats in it, which is not the key signature of E flat. Okay, how can that be? Well, we're at measure 20 in the piece, and we've actually modulated to the key of E flat at this point. The difference between A flat and E flat is that E flat has a D natural in it, and you'll see any Ds in this example are D naturals. That's a great thing to point out, though, because we usually look for chromatic alterations like sharps, flats, and naturals to see if it's a secondary dominant. And in this case, a D natural is not necessarily a signal that we have a secondary dominant here. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. I see G, B, D, F. Okay, so G, B, D, F. That is chromatically altered from the key of E flat because it has a B natural in it. This chord is a major triad with a minor 7th. All right, so this is 5 of something. D is the 5th of the chord. That means this is a 4-3. And G is 5 in the key of C. C is 6 in the key of E flat, so this is 5-4-3 of 6. Okay, 6 is C minor, right? I see this next chord is C minor, so it makes sense that 5-4-3 of 6 would go to 6. This is like we just went 5-1 in C minor. It's just C minor is 6 in the key of E flat. Now look here, this is actually pretty cool. This half note B has these notes in the right hand. Again, this is our G7 chord. This is the same chord as this chord. So this is a 5-6-5 because B is in the bass. And we already know that G7 is 5 of 6. So this is 5-6-5 of 6. Look what's happening here. You know what this is. Do you see how the bass goes D, C, B? And this thumb in the right hand, which I guess is technically the tenor line, goes B, C, D. What is that called? Look at this. So fancy, colored pens. This is a voice exchange, right? Where B, C, D and D, C, B swap voices. All right, so we're expecting this now to go to the 6th chord, but this chord, which should be a C minor chord if it were diatonic, actually has an E natural in it. So this instead is C, E, G. That's a major triad, which means this is a 5 of something. C is 5 in the key of A flat. Sorry, C is 5 in the key of F. And F is 2 in the key of E flat, so this is a 5 of 2. Do you see that these notes in the right hand sustain while the bass moves from C to B flat? So we've gone from C, E, G to C, E, G, B flat. So this, which was a 5 triad, has now become 5, 4, 2 of 2, right? So still a 5 of 2. It's a root position 5. In fact, I'll write it here again, even though normally we don't have to repeat the analysis. We can just change the figure. 5, 4, 2 of 2. Okay. We'd expect that to go to a 2 chord, which would be an F minor chord, but I see here a chromatic alteration. Okay, so let's see what we've got. I see F, A, C, E flat, F, A natural, C, E flat. That is a major triad and a minor 7th. So once again, secondary dominant. This is 5. A is in the bass, which is the 3rd of the chord, so it's a 5, 6, 5. F is the root. F is 5 in the key of B flat. B flat is 5 in the key of E flat. This is a 5, 6, 5 of 5. Okay, we'd expect that to go to a 5, and I see right here B flat, D, F. Remember, this D right here is not a chromatic alteration because we're in the key of E flat, which has a D natural in it. So this is taking us to the 5 chord. This is exactly what happened over here. Remember, we had a C major chord, and then the bass stepped down to the 7th, giving us C, E, G, B flat. Right here, we've got a B flat major chord. The chord sustains. This steps down to the 7th, making this a 5, 4, 2 on beat 4. Remember, 4, 2 has a 7th in the bass, which resolves down to the 3rd of the chord it's resolving to, which means this is an E flat chord with G in the bass. This is a 1, 6. Okay, and now let's look here. I see F, A flat, C, E flat. That is our 2, 6, 5. It's the 2, 7 chord in first inversion. And look here, we've got so, do, 5, 5, 1 in the bass. This looks like an E flat major chord. You're going to be tempted to call this a 1, 6, 4, but do you remember that this is a cadential 6, 4 to 5, 3. And we finally resolve to a 1 chord. And these 2 notes right here are just held over from the previous, and then they resolve up. Those are upwardly resolving suspensions. The name for those is retardation. I don't know, maybe that word will fall out of favor. We can call it an upwardly upwardly resolving suspension. I feel like we should hear this. So I'm going to carry this over to my piano. If you get vertigo, close your eyes for a second. So here we are at the piano.